to You Can Do It Too, a podcast highlighting regular folks who followed their dreams and made it happen. I'm Joan Hutchinson, your restaurant maven. I've been described as a risk taker, though I never thought of myself that way. My mom always told me I could do or be whatever I wanted as long as I set my mind to it, and I believed her. I ran a successful catering company that led to owning and operating a top 10 Orange County restaurant and catering venue, prior to earning a bachelor's degree in business management and marketing. You know what I learned by going to school after all of that? You don't need a degree to accomplish your dreams. You need drive, passion, and a belief in yourself. You also need some caring folks who support you and believe in you. I didn't need a formula to tell me how to properly staff for a week. I needed common sense and a deep care for creating outstanding dining experiences for my guests. I've been coaching and consulting with salespeople and small business owners for the last few years and blogging with business advice. I just wanted to do more, to reach more of you. I decided to talk with folks I admire, who kick ass at what they do, to show you that you can do it too. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm so excited about this episode. I have been talking a lot about fear and how you get past it. And one of my biggest fears, and I know many of you have the same fear, is talking to new people and how to deal with networking situations and how to just connect with people that maybe you think they're cool, but you're nervous and you don't know how to talk to them, or maybe you are inspired by them in for the way they deal with business or in their life experiences, and you would love to connect, but you just don't know how. So I invited 3 ladies who are incredible in this field. 2 you've met before. I will introduce them now. Michelle Ferry has been in employee benefits for 31 years. She's one of the top sales reps in her company. She's an 8-time sales leader of the year, 20-time member of the 100% Club, and Vice President Award recipient. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. Rebecca Baylor is a recruiter and a serial networker. She works as a search strategy coach at Hunt Club, which is a high-growth recruiting and technology startup. She's traveled the world. She's worked in several industries. And welcome so much, Becca Baylor.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. And for the first time, Paula Matusek. She's got more than 20 years experience working for Fortune 500 companies. She is currently working on merger and acquisitions, integrations, and she has global responsibilities in the financial, healthcare, communication, and biotech sectors. Paula's worked with Equifax, Enterprise Holdings, Express Scripts, Monsanto, Morgan Stanley, and MasterCard. Welcome, Paula.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to Facebook. Please make sure that you type any of your questions in the chat. All these ladies will be happy to answer them. You can type it in the chat right here in Riverside or on Facebook. So first thing, when I first talked with Michelle, I posted something that she said over the last week when she said to talk to someone new each day. And I'm wondering, Michelle, if you have some recommendations for conversation starters.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Joan. I'm really happy to be here again. I had a great time the first time we chatted, and as soon as I hung up, I was like, I want to do that again. And then you kind of rewatch it and look at yourself and think how you might improve. So this is my second opportunity. I kind of just thought that connecting with people or starting conversations was just sort of something everyone did. And the story, I don't have to repeat the whole story, but the story is that I realized when my daughter went off to college that, you know, she was shy. I didn't even know she was shy. And so we kind of talked about some strategies on how you can create friends or make connections. And can start really simply. And if you're just brutally shy or an introvert, but yet you feel like you need to improve on that within yourself, it's like you start with really little things, like say hi to 3 people that you walk by, and that's it. Just good morning. And that's it. People are often shocked. They're like, good morning, you know, or hello, or, you know, anything. So we started with that, like just start talking to say something to somebody you don't know. I mean, that's sort of the first step in becoming comfortable with your voice and your voice to other people. And then was graduated into, you know, you can just sometimes start a conversation, and it doesn't always work, but you know, I would often get in an elevator and I'm just observant. So I'm just kind of looking at the people in the elevator with me, and I might look down and go, oh, those shoes are amazing. I love those shoes. And I'm not being fake. It's an honest opinion of mine. People sit in an elevator and they have thoughts about the people that are in the room with them, but they just don't say them out loud, you know?
That's so true. It's so funny. I just saw like a commercial about that, and the guy, oh, you know what it was?
I just saw it.
Yeah, you know, acting like your parents when you buy a house, the insurance guy, and the guy standing in the elevator facing everyone. And
right, that's really ballsy. I've often wanted to do that just to be funny when I'm in an elevator with people that I know. But yeah, I mean, just being in an elevator and thinking thoughts, and it's okay to compliment people. And you know, so many times I'll get the where they found those and what great price they got, or that they have them in 3 colors, or, you know, and you just sort of start talking, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. So just little random things. And I think, Joan, you told the story when I was in the grocery store talking about something that was in someone's cart, and we ended up having a long conversation. And
I think you talked to that guy for 15 minutes.
Because I just like to talk, and I'm a talker. But, you know, I mean, I could also get cues, right? Like I can get cues where they don't want to be involved in a conversation with me, or they're brutally shy and don't want to be, you know, a bit of an extrovert that day. So it is a little bit of a fine line where you've got to, you want to put yourself out there a little bit just to gain some comfortability. But one thing I was taught in sales training was I have to go and make cold calls and go into people's offices and talk with them, people I've never met. And it's look around the room and find some similarities between you and the person you're meeting with. It could be a picture of their grandkids. It could be a sport that they're into. It could be a sports team that they love. I mean, it could be anything that you have some kind of common ground on, and that sort of helps you get conversation going and flowing. And once you're all feeling warm and cozy with one another, and you've got a little bit of conversation going, then you can get down to this is why I'm here. I don't want to waste, 30 minutes of your day. Let's talk quickly about the reasons that I'm here. And then that obviously leads into more conversation. And for me, and for sales, if you're interested in sales, building the relationship is the most important part of the sales process. Once you have that relationship, you've found some common ground, you have some things to talk about outside of work, you start to build with one another, and trust starts to get formed. So,
yeah. Paula, you also are so great at talking to people that just walk up. And I mean, can you expound on what Michelle just said?
Sure. I think I'm exactly the same, but I didn't start out that way. I mean, I was painfully shy, young, and there's so many things prior to social media that you had to go to. Well, I mean, so you had to go to like group activities for work, or if you wanted to do any kind of professional organization, or school and you had to stand up and talk, which I think is most people's fear. It was definitely mine. Um, but there were things that I did to help me with that. Sometimes I would come, I would just go to a meeting or a group event and I would see someone maybe like Becca and go, "Oh, hi, are you, what area are you from? Or what group are you with? Or what, or where'd you find that cheese you got on your plate?" It could be something that simple. And she's like, "Oh, it's really good. It's over there." I mean, that might be your just one little tidbit that you say, and just like Michelle said, I have no problem saying those are great shoes, or I love your necklace, and I'm not saying it just to say it. I really did notice their
Right.
shoes. I really do like their necklace. I mean, I think that's the key. And I happen to do that all the time. I'll do that today. I don't even know where I was today, but I know that I was thinking about this meeting coming up right now, and I'm like, here I am chit-chatting with somebody I don't even remember what store I was. But I can get all kinds of information, and again, it's not just to get information. And back in the day, I remember people used to say, "Oh, if you go networking in a group, you should come out with 25 business cards." I never was good at that piece of it. Guess what? I was the one that made the connection, though. I made the connection because, like you said, Michelle, you look around or you have something maybe in common. Maybe it's a book that's in their office, or maybe, and you either read it or you wanted to read it, or you just ask about it, and maybe, and don't be a curmudgeon or a one word answer. Yes, no, but I can
Right.
usually, you get some humor out of it, or damn, it's cold in here, or what. It's just a comment,
Yeah.
just like you said. You just bring it up to anybody and everybody. You get used to it.
Hmm.
You can talk to a clerk at a store or
Yeah, I think that's the
start.
point too, right? It's like getting your level of comfortability of just saying things out loud to
Right,
strangers, and then just having a conversation with the
right.
stranger.
And I mean,
Yeah.
you could think of it as maybe just making their day by saying, "Oh, that's a pretty sweater." I mean, you got to find somebody
Mhm.
that you and you see something really nice. I was at the nail salon the other day, and I overheard this woman say she was 86. She was the only other one in there, so I look around. She didn't look 70. And I knew her
Uh-huh.
name also. Her name was Joan, by the way. Joan. And I
Uh-huh.
said, and Joan, by the way, you look great, on my way out. And she's like, "Oh, you made my day." But it's again, that's simple. Why not?
Right.
Why not say that? It
Yeah.
made her day. And it's true. It was true.
Becca, you look like
Mhm.
you got something to say.
Yeah.
Well, I just think the whole conversation is really interesting, and you guys both brought up points about, like, how maybe it's not, oh, you need 25 business cards at the end of an event, or a travel, or your journey from point A to point B, but it's the genuine ones,
Hmm.
the genuine points of connections that make the most sense and are the most valuable. It's
Absolutely.
really about building a relationship that Michelle said,
Right.
or like having something that's genuine and deep. I think some of the biggest fears that people come up to me with when I talk about, whether it's through the lens of recruiting or just in general, as someone who I'm in my 30s, just moved to a new city. A lot of my friends are in the same place, and they're like, "How do you meet new people? Like, do you just have, a list of people that you try to find, or a number or a quota that you try to hit?" And the answer is no. Like, I pursue things that are of interest to me, and when I meet someone, I try to figure out what's of interest to them too. Not with it for any, like, any broader intention, but really that's what networking is all about, is like connecting with someone on a genuine level. And I think some ways, I think Paula, you mentioned like networking was a little different back
Hmm.
then, or a handful of years ago, than it might be now.
Right.
And I think that's true too. But it makes it simpler in some ways, but also more complicated. So I find that very
Hmm.
fascinating.
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it takes confidence. So I think Paula, well, all three of you ladies have an incredible amount of confidence in yourselves, but Paula told me uh, that I always go on interviews. I went,
I
"What?"
do.
Love
And
that.
she
Love that.
said, Yeah, because that's how I know what I'm worth,
Right.
you know? And I was like, oh my God, that is insane.
And it gives you practice. I mean, there's a lot of practice involved, and I could either, and there's a lot of people that I know that I could also toss the way of the recruiter if doesn't work for me. You know, nowadays it's a little harder, but because everybody has a job pretty much or options.
That wants
Right.
to, right?
But I mean, but I do interview, and I will talk to most recruiters if it's the job, if it's an interesting job, because you never know.
Yeah. I think that's really solid. I feel like sometimes, especially in the world of recruiting, sometimes people are like, oh, I need a new job. Let's network now. But two things that you brought up are just like, don't wait until
No,
you need to network,
no.
Right.
like in order to create one. And then also, if you can add value, if you can have a conversation to see like what are they offering in this field? Like, is the opportunity worth it? But also, is this opportunity worth it for somebody I know? Because if
Right.
they're willing to reach out to you, they they think you're skilled and qualified enough, so your referral, for lack of better wording, could mean more, right, than a cold
Yeah.
reach out. And that person that you're referring may be more likely to have a conversation than if they were to be cold called by a recruiter in the first place. So
Yeah.
that's really awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think on the flip side of that too, I found, I mean, I have worked for the same company for 30 years. I took a small snippet of a break and worked with another company. I've always encouraged other people to take all those interviews and pursue those opportunities. You don't really have a decision to make about whether or not you want the job until they've actually offered it to
Right.
you. So you're not making any decision. You're just having conversations. And in my business, what I found is that often the person I might have interviewed with for something, they've left the company and they've gone someplace else. And that was a beneficial relationship for me. And it worked out for me. I now called on that person and asked that person for business. So, you know, you meet people all the way around the spectrum. You get your comfortability level again to a place where I can feel confident going in and interviewing. I don't have to take this job. I don't even know if I want this job. I'm actually going to be talking to them about things that are important to me to see if it's a job I would really even consider, as opposed to they're looking to see if they want me. It's also the other way around, right? Like, I might not want them, but this is a great opportunity to meet someone in a position that can make decisions that could be at another firm later on, a few years later, that I might really want to work at, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
It worked for me.
Yeah,
It worked for me. Somebody I interviewed with called me later and said, hey, I know you don't want the job I had for you, but would you be interested in this other job? And I absolutely was. And I totally loved that job. So yeah, I was lucky in that regard. So Rebecca, you told me that you were addicted to LinkedIn, and which I thought was funny in two ways. Like, it's like, how can you be addicted to LinkedIn? I don't know. I scroll through what people are writing, I guess. But you actually inspired me to check into LinkedIn on a regular basis. I am excited because of you, and because of my goals for this year and this podcast and myself and my life. I am reaching out to people. Thank you, Rebecca, on LinkedIn. I posted on Facebook that I wanted to do a podcast on marketing. Asked anyone who's doing marketing, or if they know someone who is, to reach out so that I could have them on the show. The next day, the universe had somebody message me on LinkedIn who's a marketer.
Nice.
I love that.
Yes. And I said, oh my gosh, this is just amazing. I said, so glad you reached out and you want to join my network. I would love to have you on my show. And she agreed. So our next podcast will be on marketing, and it's somebody that I met through LinkedIn.
that's great.
And you, Rebecca, told me that you should send a little note when you ask to follow someone. So I have been doing that. But what do you recommend you say when you're on LinkedIn and you're trying to reach out to someone?
That's a great question. I am slightly addicted to LinkedIn. Part of it is through work too, though, just because being in the
Hmm.
recruiting world, LinkedIn is the biggest networking platform for professionals. There are many others, both conventional and otherwise, but if I reach out to someone, I think the biggest piece of advice I would give is keep it simple, and also make it known why you're reaching out. Sometimes we hesitate to ask a direct question. But if you have a question, there should definitely be a question mark in whatever you're saying. So, like an example, like putting those things into practice would just be, hi, like I love your work. I saw a couple posts. It really resonated with me. Would you be interested in catching? I think I would love to connect with you for 15 minutes. Would you be interested in hopping on a call in the next 2 weeks? Like that's a simple, straightforward ask. And also it's kind of as Michelle and Paula were saying earlier, it goes to build common ground also because
Hmm.
I mean, if you admire someone, why not tell them that? That's the biggest compliment you could probably give. And then the other piece is keep it short and sweet, sweeter than sweeter than you might think.
Hmm.
So those are my piece of advice. If you connect with someone or if you have a particular ask. And the other thing I found is if you're asking someone to share a little bit about themselves, people generally have a lot of great advice and insights to share. And why wouldn't they? No story is the same. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to ask someone to share that piece of you or their profession and evolution with you as well. So those are my thoughts.
How
That's
about
great. It's
you?
a great way to find that person that you interviewed with too, right? You're
Hmm.
scrolling through LinkedIn and you found the different jobs that they've been at
Hmm.
and what their history is and all that. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And before I have a meeting, I'll often go on LinkedIn if I don't know them
Right.
and go, what do they look like? You know,
Absolutely.
I'm not, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Where they
So
went to
it's a good tool.
school, other people they know, it's all on there.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's such a great tool, and I'm a little surprised when people that maybe are looking for jobs have a very simple, basic job description type of LinkedIn. I mean, anybody can go look at mine. Mine's probably a little robust. Just saying, you know. Um, but I've also gone to, of course, I've gone to the classes that tell you how to do that, so that you could be searched on for keywords and different pieces of that puzzle. And again, I've gotten a lot of connections because of it. And sharing again. I would say that doesn't sound. Just recently, I said that doesn't sound like a job for me, but I know somebody that's looking. I think might be a great fit. Guess what? I just saw that she was hired on. She just updated
Oh,
her LinkedIn and said she started a new position, and it's that one. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow. That's great.
I should be a
yeah,
recruiter. Just
that is
kidding. I don't
awesome.
want to be a recruiter.
I the the company I work for called Hunt Club actually has we have our own software that's like essentially LinkedIn on steroids, but we still use LinkedIn for recruiting purposes. And one of the tools that we have in there is kind of an expert network. And so say I'm looking for somebody for a job, I find someone, I see that they're related to Paula, who's an expert, and I would instead of reaching out to that person first, I say, hey, Paula, I have this great opportunity. We think that your connection or your mutual, your friend or colleague, whichever, would be a great fit for this. Would you be interested in referring them to this
Nice.
position? And it's just such a great way to build trust without even making a connection and also make sure that the job is a good opportunity for like the person's a good fit for the opportunity and also that person's interested as well. And so that's really awesome that you're doing that. You should be a recruiter and I'll send you my expert network
I'm
link.
just, I would, I think I probably would have been good at it, but
I have no
I
doubt.
just find it, it's just, in fact, I've gotten jobs from, just going, well, tell me more about that job because maybe I know somebody. And then I end up with, that's how I got to Equifax. I think I've only applied for one job. The rest of the jobs I've been reached out to. So,
Powerful.
but
That's
I think
great.
that again, that's all from networking. If they know you or if somebody else mentioned you to them, and I mention people, and I'm not gonna not say that if they reach out, like if you said, would you refer your friend so and so, and if I didn't have a good experience with them, or I didn't think they were a good worker or a good fit, I mean, I would tell you, I would say, and I would not put my name on it, but going back to referrals, I've actually, because of networking, I know people and I've referred them and gotten those referral bonuses too. That's not why I do it, but
Hmm.
it's a nice little tidbit on top of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Um, so Rebecca, I'm asking you because you're the LinkedIn expert. Are there other online ways to connect with people that maybe you're looking for a mentor? Do you know, or is there?
So that's a good question. I'm actually curious if Michelle and Paula use any other online networking tools, but I think so. Like networking to me breaks down into two main categories, like social or personal, and then also
Hmm.
professional. I think the personal side, like I mean, my fiance, we just shared that I got engaged. I met him online or via an app called Hinge, and so like that's networking,
Hmm.
right? But so some of the other ones that I've used, in addition to LinkedIn, are something called there's a dating app has spun out with like a friend networking component and also a professional component. So it's called Bumble, and there's a Bumble Biz and a Bumble BFF option, and I lived in Michigan for 7 years, and when I moved back to St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm currently based, I was like, oh, I don't have a lot of friends here. I need to expand my network, find people who have common ground. And so when I used to use a dating app, it has a friend connection component, and I switched over to that version, and I found a friend who has since connected me with other friends, and now I'm in a hiking group I would have never been a part of, and we hang out and do all those fun things. So those things. I also think just any online community
Yeah.
that is there. I think online tools are
Hmm.
awesome, but as long as you can, I think they're awesome as a tool and a resource, but the repetition needs to be there. And also, if you have the opportunity to make it in person or connect as in person as you can, like that's great. It's the difference between like liking someone's post versus commenting on it or by sending them a personal message, right? I feel like the more you can break down the virtual barrier is great. Just online tools allow you to expand that. One good example, and then I'll pause, is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn actually has an option where you can say that you're looking for a mentor and you say what, or you want to be a mentor. And I cannot remember exactly how to get to this option, but basically you just
Hmm.
toggle a switch, kind of like the I'm
Right.
hiring or I'm looking for work option. And you say what areas of interest you're in, and that you're looking for what kind of advice you're looking for. And then it randomly like pairs you and say, hey, you have this interest. This other person is
Hmm.
skilled in this area. Would you be interested in like reaching out to them because they opted in also? So there's a lot of interesting things. Like networking it's been around forever since humans have
Hmm.
existed, but
Right.
it's evolving in very interesting ways to me. So I do dabble in other areas beyond LinkedIn,
Right.
but
So
yeah.
I'll tell a quick interesting story. I took a class. It was a class. It was yoga. It was part of a yoga class, and I ended up talking with the instructor, and we ended up going ice skating together. Of course we did, and then because we were both in between jobs, and we helped each other get other connections within our field because we were in the same field. I mean, we would have never known that from a yoga class unless we had a little chit chat on the side. I don't even know how it
Right.
started because it's just kind of normal for me. And the next
Uh-huh.
thing you know, we kind of know the same people. We're looking at some of the same jobs. I'm also Becca in St. Louis. We'll have to meet up and share other
Yes.
stories. And but I mean, you just never know. It can be any of those a class, a cooking class, and you're chit chatting with the person you're with. Um, other things I would say was when you get together or there's classes, don't sit with your friend. Don't sit with your friend. Do not sit with your friend. Go to a different table. I do this
Mm.
with my husband. But we go out different party and we go to different tables and talk to different people, and then we come together and have a lot to talk about after that. And because I've been guilty. I'll sit with my friends sometimes, and I regret it because I love catching up with them, but I didn't get any other benefit out of that meeting or group or time. You know.
Right. We tend to kind of default with, hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to this event. You want to come with
Right.
me? And it is so much better if you just go by
It is.
yourself. Go by yourself. You are forced to talk to people when you go by yourself. Becca, I don't use any other tools other than LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But, I have obviously some social media where I can kind of keep up with people or find who's connected to who. And it's always really funny to see how we have 5 of the same similar connections, and you're like, who are those?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of a fun, interesting thing to do. But I think you're right, Paula. If you're going with somebody, just go separate and say, let's meet up in 20 minutes and download info and go back out again if we want. And it's the same as like going to eat at a restaurant, right? Like go sit at the bar at a restaurant to eat. And the funniest thing happened to me. I went to a restaurant and I sat at the bar because I was by myself. And I just started chatting to this gentleman next to me, and we had a 45-minute conversation, and I kept saying, I know you from somewhere. I know you. And we started going through, what do you do for a living? Which we hadn't even talked about in 45 minutes. Like, where would our connections be? And I found out that 10 years ago, I bought my front door from him. He was an iron guy, and I bought my iron front door from him 10 years ago. And I just kept, it was like just so random. But when you leave a restaurant, when you go to a restaurant by yourself, you feel a little awkward and weird. And if you don't turn your head and say something to the person next to you, you leave feeling awkward and weird.
Correct.
But if you just turn your head and say something, it might be a 5-minute conversation. It might not be a conversation at all. It could be a 45-minute conversation.
Right.
And then you leave going, that was fun. That was a good time. Like, I learned things about this person. I learned about all the places that he traveled. We talked about similarities and all that. And nothing beyond just like, it was nice to have a conversation with somebody and then just to find that funny connection that we'd had 10 years ago. He was like, wow, you have quite a memory. I can't believe you remember that. But it just, so it just can kind of make your experience so much better.
That's awesome.
Yep.
100%.
Or being on a plane. You're on a plane. You got to say something to the person next to you. Uh-oh, did I forget to plug in my computer? It says my battery is low.
What were you going to say, Becca?
Well, I was just going to say, maybe not every conversation is like a detailed one or one that spirals. Those ones are beautiful to me, and I love having those, the serendipitous moments that you didn't know were going to happen. But the thing is like, someone has to set the spark to make it go. And so it really breaks down something like whether it's a 5-minute conversation, a 2-second interaction, or, 45 minutes later, like just networking is really and finding genuine connections. It's really a two-way street, right? And so I think it really boils down to just recognizing the humanity that is right next to you, right? So if someone's sitting at a bar, why wouldn't you say hello? Because otherwise it's just two people sitting next to each other being like, wow, that person's not saying anything, or this is slightly awkward. It's like, just break the tension.
And then you find yourself, the whole bar is every single person staring at their telephone, which is, I can't stand. So I won't ever bring it out if I go sit by myself because it drives, we have gotten so comfortable not talking to people that we sort of have to retrain ourselves to don't bring your phone out. Just look around and observe what's going on and make that connection.
Even if it's just looking over and saying, how's that soup? What do that sandwich looks good. What'd you order? And then it can start from there. It could just get a good recommendation.
Right.
I'm sure I've been with you, Paula, when you've done that. I'm
pretty sure. What is
I'm
that?
sorry,
That
excuse
looks
me for a minute. What are you eating?
Yeah.
Can I try that? No, I'm not that bold.
I think all of us on this call, we really kind of think that second nature. To us, it's second nature. So you really, again, coming back to the beginning, you kind of think everybody can do that, and they can't,
start out that
and
way
so
for all of you? Because it did not start out that way for me. I was uncomfortable talking to people that I did not know.
I mean, if you know Joan, she's one of 9 and I'm one of them. And growing up in a big family, I mean, you need to have your voice heard.
Right.
So for me, it's just, I've just always been a talker.
Mm-hmm. I've always been a talker, but I've not been the one. I didn't used to be the one, like in my early 20s, late teens,
Yeah.
early 20s, all through that time, that would be the one that initiated that conversation. I wouldn't have gone into that bar and restaurant. I would have gone through the drive-through. I would not have,
Yeah.
right? I would have.
Yeah, no, I get
I
it.
would
Yeah.
have, and if I was forced to be there, I wouldn't be the one doing the talking. But then I realized that the majority of people were just like me. So why not do the, like Becca said, why don't I do the spark?
Mhm.
Why don't I ask the questions? I mean, there's been tables that I've sat at and I started the conversation, and I'll just tell you, I wasn't welcomed. And that did not stop me at all. I'll give
Well,
you,
I'll tell you,
yeah.
I have the thoughts in my head of what I would like to say to those people, and they live with me for quite a few minutes before I talk. I am the youngest of all of those kids, so I really never had to open my mouth
Oh.
because there was
Yeah.
plenty of other conversation going on at the table, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I am curious though, what would be your advice or tips or guidance for someone who is maybe a little more shy or who doesn't think networking is for them? I'm just curious to get you guys' thoughts and perceptions on that. I used to be more shy and then gradually became more extroverted, and I've been that way ever
Me
since.
too.
But I'm curious.
For me, I
Who's going
think it's
first?
going back to what we started talking about in the very beginning about you have to take the little steps. Like you have to do it yourself. No one's going to do it for
Mm.
you. And so you have to take the small steps. A comment, a
Right.
hello, having your voice heard out loud to strangers is a good way to just get
Mm-hmm.
started. And if you're at a networking event, Becca and Paula, Joan, you guys all probably know this. I mean, maybe write 5 questions down that you'd hope to ask someone that you met there that you don't know. And if you're super uncomfortable with doing that, 5 questions is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to hightail it the heck out of there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I got 5 questions. I'm out of here. I'm so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But when you leave, you have gained something.
But even so, you could be so what I did when I wasn't the question giver, I would be with someone like you, and I would listen to what you would say and how you got a reaction. Sometimes you learn what not to do when that happened, right?
Yeah,
So and
for
then the
sure.
next time you have a question or you have a different way of approaching something because you saw somebody, whether it be at your table or in the room with you or next to you or wherever, the little cheese and cracker area, whatever that is. Right? Because sometimes it doesn't, I mean,
Yeah,
it doesn't usually start out with the professional question. I mean, it always starts out with,
right,
like,
right.
yeah, and I mean, maybe it is, where do you work, or where's the cheese table, or where's the drinks, or what table are you sitting at, or any of those things. I mean, that are non-work specific related.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It used to always be that the conversation starter was, what do you do for a
Mm-hmm.
living? And then we
right,
figured out that nobody likes that question,
I still don't like it.
right,
And
right.
so I think so recently I've realized how hard it has been lately. Maybe I've moved quite a bit. And not just a little ways. I've moved quite far from state to state. And what's interesting is the more I move, the less I am networking,
Hmm.
and I've felt the negative effects of that. So I think that it's very important to my life and my well-being and my happiness, and I feel like my life is more full when I am reaching out to people, when I am starting conversations. And so this has been a big thing for me, and this You Can Do It Too podcast has helped push me to reach out to people. And it is scary, so scary. And I said to my husband yesterday after the girl that I messaged about the marketing responded and said she would love to do the show, I was so excited, and it made me feel so good that I reached out. And I said, why are we afraid to talk to people? I mean, what are they going to say? Like, I'm not interested. So what? Right? I mean, I'll just talk to the next person.
Right.
It's not that big of a deal, you know? Why do we make it such a big deal? But to me, the fact that I did it, I thought about it, I reached out, I'm excited that I did. She's not the only one. I also talked to a local winemaker here in Door County. She's just opened up. She and her husband have a winery that they just planted their vines last year.
Wow.
And they actually are really close to our house in Egg Harbor here in Door County, Wisconsin, called Anchored Roots. And she is going to be on the show, and I'm super excited to talk to her.
Cool.
But it's just, you know, it makes me so excited that I did it. And that propels me to be less afraid to step
next
up
time.
the next time.
Sure.
And it opens your world, you know, your world just becomes more open as you bring more people into it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Becca, about that, about networking?
For shy folks or folks, because I think it's really important. Like, I'm an extrovert, so I think it's really important to acknowledge that piece in the puzzle, because a lot of people are like, oh, you can do it, but I can't do it. And I think if I were to give advice to someone who feels like networking isn't for them, or who's, you know, a little on the shyer side or introverted side, I'd say, like, kind of 3 tips. 1, like, be curious. Really, people, no one has lived the same life twice. I'm a twin, and I can tell you that is true, right? Like, our lives are very different, even as we're as similar as can be. And it just means so much to people if you are curious about them, what they like, the conversations that stop at a halt. It's the ones that don't end like open enough to give you something to grab onto, to be like, oh, okay, you know, where do we go from here? So just be curious, asking about people, whether it's their shoes, the food on their plate, you know, what brings them joy, anything. And then another piece is, like, sometimes in talking with more introverted folks, I feel like people don't want to be a burden, right? They don't want to, you know, my partner is a little more introverted than me, and he'd be like, oh, you don't have to talk with everyone. And he really doesn't want to, like, if someone's, you know, say I'm in the grocery store, I'm like, oh, someone has this leak in their cart, and I haven't seen a leak in days. I'm going to ask about which aisle they got it from or where they got it from. And he's like, they're shopping. They're probably going from point A to point B. Why would I interfere with that? And honestly, like, I think some of the tips I would give is, like, that person probably, if they have a leak in their cart, they were probably excited to put it there. Why wouldn't they want to share that with you? You know what I mean? And so it doesn't have to be a long conversation, but, like, don't think of yourself as a burden. Like, you'll get a hint. You will be, they'll probably be acutely aware if they're really unwanted, you know, in that conversation. And most of the time, 99% of the time, that won't be the case, right? And then the last piece is, like, I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, networking or speaking or talking is for extroverts. And I don't think that's the case. I think networking is for people, and we're all people. It's like the most basic form of networking, Joan and Michelle brought it up, is our families. Like if you think way back in the day, like your family, your community, a member of your church, like that was your original network. And now we have this beautiful ability to go beyond that. And we often do. And so, like, it's not something that I think is just for one type of person or not. Like, everyone benefits from a network. It's, because they're valuable for so many ways: professional, personal, emotional support, or even just sense of feeling and purpose, kind of like Joan was saying. So, I think I'll toot the networking horn. I've worked, I'm in recruiting. I love it. I'm here. So,
I find that a lot of people may not have grown up in the same type of situation where that they had they had a two-way conversation. Maybe they were talked at or talked to, you know, not with. And then so there's a group called Toastmasters, if everybody's familiar with Toastmasters. And I remember the first time I heard about Toastmasters, I like rolled my eyes. I thought, oh, that's the stupidest thing. I'd never do something like that. Anyway, I've been doing that for a while. So, but you learn in something like Toastmasters, you get a chance to uh, not do these filler words, and ah. You don't even know that you're doing or playing with a pen, clicking a pen. You have lots of other people. That's another networking thing. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons I started with networking or using Toastmasters is because I had no other way to network in the company I was at, and it was driving me nuts. I went to one of their meetings, and it came from all different groups, and I got to know all kinds of people. And guess what? I was very successful in my job because I had connections that I could call on and ask them how to get things done. And it was, again, that wasn't the exact intention of it, but not only did I learn different skills that we don't usually get to practice, or that we don't even know. If you don't know that you're not a good conversationalist, or why, a lot of things will come out in those kind of trainings. Most of your work will pay for them. These are all work related. I didn't just go to
Right.
Toastmasters down the street. Those happen too. But these were all work related, where you can meet people from different groups, hear different, guess what they're doing speeches on? Work. So you get to know a lot of different things that are going on at work, and how you communicate, how they see you. It definitely can be a confidence builder, because everybody needs to be able to convey their beliefs, their what's going on at work, the end of year reviews. It all helps. It all helps.
That's fascinating to me. So I've heard of Toastmasters. I've never actually done it before or participated in an event. So you're inspiring me to do that
Oh.
now. That's really important. And I think something that you brought up too, like a couple of things, is like people aren't just born good speakers versus not, or good at networking or not. Like without practice, you I mean, you can't do very many things well without practice,
Mhm.
right? And so it's part of that too. And so making baby steps to get there is really important, or, finding a space where you can practice and get feedback is
Right.
great. The other piece that I think is interesting is you were talking about your network and the value you got from it. If you needed to ask a question and, you had someone that you could
Hmm.
go to. And I think we think about the value we get, but also like being in a network, there's so much value that each of us can provide to folks, and who is in our network can help make connections, right? Like Paula, you
Yeah.
said I'm not, my case is similar. Like I've applied to one or two jobs, all the other ones were referrals, and my career is, I mean, hopefully will continue for many more years. So we'll see if that, trend holds up or not. But I think that's really valuable for folks who don't have networks. And by you networking with them, you expand
Yeah,
theirs
absolutely.
into
Right.
Hmm.
it is so powerful, because networks mean everything. And some people start with different ones, or networks that start in different
Hmm.
places. And so if you can provide value to someone else's, that's
Right. I
awesome.
love the connections,
Yeah.
and finding out that you're like, it's some weird way you're connected to people that you didn't like. How did this happen? Right. I love it.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Michelle, thoughts on that?
No, I think those are all good tips. I mean, the one thing that I thought of as practice, practice, practice is so true, Becca. I mean, in my business, I'm a wholesaler, so I don't often meet my client before I sell my product to them. Um, but there are occasions when it's a very large client, potential client, where we have to go and present in front of their board and their decision makers, and we take a team. And so just getting that team together and getting in a room and running through it and running through it and running through it and running through it until we're all comfortable, because we all walk in that room with some pressure to perform, and we all get a little nervous, even though we've been doing it for years and years and years, and we know our material. It's a new client with new questions, with new nuances.
Hmm.
And, if we can get in a room together and we can talk out loud to each other, which is, to me, it's the hardest thing to do, is to present in front of my own
Mm.
peers. And I can present in front of an audience of people I don't
Right.
know, But when it's with people I know, it feels like a lot
And why
more
do you think that
pressure. And
is?
so being in
Why
that
do
room,
you think that is? Because I think this is
I,
really important.
yeah, I think just understanding my level of competency, and
Hmm.
generally when I'm in front of a group of my peers, they're all very competent,
Hmm.
and all of us have different
Right.
strengths. Like, especially when I first started into sales, I thought I needed to be like my sales manager, and I quickly realized, wait, we are two totally
Mm.
different people with two totally different approaches, and that's okay. But you still sort of have a little bit of pressure, like I want them to think I'm as competent as I think they
Right.
are,
There you go.
So just being in that room and practice,
Hmm.
practice, practice, going through it till you feel like you're at a level of comfortability, you walk in so much more confident, and
Hmm.
you can ask the probing questions you need to, because you're not so nervous and focused on what your next slide is.
Right.
You can actually back up the truck and stop and, you know, let's go back and ask some questions, and you're more comfortable. And I'll tell you, most of the time when our team presents in person, we win.
Mm, nice.
We
But
win.
Michelle, going back
Yeah.
to that, how you feel, I think that's how a lot of people that are introverted or shy or young and they
Yeah.
have that same thing that goes on in their head that, maybe I'm not good enough,
Mhm.
or they don't want to talk to me, or I don't have anything to say. But you do. I mean,
Mhm.
if you like their necklace, you have something to say. If you want to ask
Yeah.
how's that soup over there, you have something to say. You know, and
Mhm.
maybe there are things as you go along that you want to be a little more interesting. Maybe you want to talk about a hobby, or how you met somebody, because you were hiking, or do you know of any good hiking trails? Oh, you
Right.
hike? Which trails have you been on? What do you like? What's around here? You know,
Right. For
do you
sure.
have any groups?
Yeah.
Whatever. But they don't. I think they just don't have the confidence, or they think that somebody's going to shut them down or roll their eyes or whatever. But I don't
It's a
find
little
that.
bit of a freezing. Yeah, it's a little bit of a freezing thing with people that aren't comfortable in that situation. They just kind of freeze up. Like, I literally can't think of a single question to ask, but I think your advice of following around somebody that does do that well, you kind of pick up some of those things like you
Yeah,
mentioned earlier, Paula.
absolutely, you do.
Yeah. And I also think just knowing that everyone has value to provide, right? And
Hmm.
so that may look very different. I don't know. I was looking up networking before this, and I came across this interesting study about like people who hates networking and who doesn't. And it turns out almost everyone does, but it gets less and less as you get older.
Oh.
I'm some weird
Mhm.
anomaly, but like, and it's because like with seniority or with time or with tenure or like expertise, like if I need sales advice, I'm about to go to Michelle, like
Yeah.
versus being, young in your career or maybe career shifting, people feel like, oh, I don't have any value to provide. But it's like if you like somebody's company or their group or whatever, like you could, say, hey, I'm interested. If you ever want feedback from a perspective like mine, be happy to give it. Or you're running, and say it's a nonprofit you're
Hmm.
interested. It doesn't have to be like money related or job related. You could be like, I'd love to take notes at your next meeting, or I could capture a couple pictures and post it to social media.
Right.
Like everyone has
Right.
value to provide, right? And
Right.
so,
Or they have an
yeah,
event coming up and you could volunteer a couple hours
yeah,
and hang out.
exactly.
I've met so many
So,
people that way. But it's because I like to,
yeah,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Becca talked before about volunteering as well,
Mm.
and that's a great thing because you wouldn't
Yeah.
volunteer for something that you weren't interested in. So people
Right.
that you meet that are other volunteers are obviously interested in that as well, and
Yeah.
it just goes from
Usually
there.
people that get
Um,
out and do
I
things, they're
think,
very interesting. They have lots to talk about.
yeah,
Mhm.
Hmm.
and I think so. I think some takeaways are. Don't sit with your friends or your spouse when you go to a party. That's a good
Work the
one.
room, work the room.
Right. Um, use open questions when you're talking with someone new. And yeah, okay, I like your shoes. And they say, well, thank you. And if they don't offer where they got, and you say, well, where'd you get those? Or you can think of another leading
Hmm.
question that is an open-ended question so that so then they'll have an answer. I was just reminded of when we used to cater. We catered for this one woman many times, and her significant other, as we were setting up the room and getting ready for the event, he would be walking around saying, and so you live on the hill, or I love the view from your like he would be practicing the comments he was going to say to people all before the party. He would just be practicing through the whole thing. Oh, that tie, I don't know. He was just so funny to listen to. And I thought it was, I really thought it was weird, but in reality, it's smart. If he was uncomfortable, so in order to make himself comfortable, he was practicing questions. So why not, before you leave the house, think of 3 questions you could ask. I mean, the easiest thing to fall back on is the weather, but I like to say, the sky was amazing tonight. Did you see that? Instead of just saying, I'm so glad it's not raining today.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
but you bring up a really good point, Joan, because the other thing is, if you're kind of a curmudgeon and you're kind of, the sky, at least it didn't rain on us. Nobody really wants to be around those people, and we've all been in those moods where we are those people. But so usually it's positive. Those are great shoes, the weather's great. Let's go out on the deck, or whatever it is. But at least I guess it didn't rain on us. Good thing it's not raining, or whatever the kind of not so fun comment. That's probably a big piece of that advice. Don't be that person.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Also, I 100% believe that talking out loud to yourself is very underrated. Like, if you need to practice something, talk out loud vocally or practice something in your head, whether I've learned to speak another language. It's like some of the people that I, speak with, and they're like, oh, I just can't get it any further. And I was like, did you say it out loud? Like, that is the number one thing, whether you're practicing for a presentation or, thinking through some questions you might ask somebody later, like, just say it out loud.
Absolutely. I do that. I absolutely do that. Yep.
Okay.
Is it a little weird? Yes. Are we leading in? Also, yes.
One other thing was find similarities. I liked that. So you're trying to think of something to say to somebody at the table. You're at some business luncheon, chamber luncheon or whatever, and find some similarities. I have incredibly curly hair. So when I see somebody else with incredibly curly hair, I'm like, oh my God, your hair looks fantastic. What did you use?
Right.
Because mine is always so stinking frizzy, So the finding the similarities is another really easy lead in for networking. I don't want to take too much more time because I know people get bored listening to anyone over 40 minutes, and we're well past that. I have so enjoyed speaking with you ladies tonight, and I hope that everyone listening has enjoyed as well and got some good things that they can use. Practice is a great thing. I was listening to a book called Your Restaurant Sucks, and he talked about practice, and how all the basketball players, they don't just do the free throws, and once they get 10 in, they're done. They practice. So it should be the same for life all the way around. Right. And networking is not a dirty word. Let's just think of it as making connections instead of networking. It's not a scary thing. It's about just making your life more full, because when you meet somebody who maybe has lived in a different country or experienced a war or has a new job and is super excited about it, it just fills your life that much more. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, ladies.
My guests. Yes, and my guests, please stay on for just a minute, and we'll say goodnight. Why am I doing this podcast? Because it's important to me that you all know that You don't have to be royalty to have a great life, to reach your dreams. So keep stretching, keep reaching, and you can do it too.
Yay. Well
Bye,
done.
everybody.
Thank you.